Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Michael's class. We're always super excited for these classes. We love teaching you guys techniques and just fun new ways to paint. So today's class is fun. Summer's here, hopefully for everybody. It's definitely summer here in Atlanta, but summer, ocean, and we wanted to do something that was a little bit abstract. Abstract is becoming so popular. So the first thing I am going to do is show you guys the supplies and the tools that we are using. So you guys have your stretched canvas. I think I called out for an 11 by 14 maybe, but I always tell everybody in the classes that I teach, use whatever size. I'm going to teach on a little bit bigger one, mainly because I think you guys can see it better. And when I hold it up, it makes it easier to see. But have fun with it. Make it whatever size canvas. We are using FolkArt acrylics, what we always use, and they are perfect for painting on canvas. They're great for abstract and blending and highlighting. So let me go over the colors. Always Wicker White and Licorice, so black and white. And then just a limited color selection today. Daffodil Yellow, Lipstick Red, this really nice kind of bright lime green, and then two blues, which weirdly look a little bit similar in the bottle, but when we use them, they're not. Brilliant Ultramarine is really, really bright. And then True Blue has a little bit of a gray navy feel when we brush it out. So two different blues, and then coffee bean, just a really nice basic brown. And I always tell everybody, if you don't have these colors, or if you maybe are decorating for a girl's room or something, and you want your boats to be pink, purple, and orange or peach, it's all about the techniques. It's all about how we apply the color and not about the color as much. So use whatever color you want for your finished canvas. So I also called out a 7-piece Craft Smart brush. And I always say the same thing. You don't need every brush, and you don't even need that specific brush. I just want to make sure you have a large, a medium, and a smaller flat brush. So I'm using a 3/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, and I think that is like a number 6. And that one is a number 2. But you just want an assortment of flat brushes. And then tonight we've got some people love it and some people don't, but we have the very inexpensive basic plastic palette knife. And this is just a fun way to kind of create all these abstract, little touches at the end of our painting. So you will need water, paper towels, and then a palette. I like to use palette paper, but if you have a plate, ceramic, or paper. And then the two supplies that I called for is just a little piece of chalk. It can be white or colored, but just a chalk stick. And then a blow dryer. The blow dryer is just so that we can dry our base coat and get started with the fun stuff. So I wanted to let you guys know, I totally forgot. Dylan is in the studio, and he will be with us the entire class, and he'll be answering any questions that you guys have. So put them in the chat, and we'll try to get you all the details that you need to paint this little boat painting that we are painting tonight. All right, so everybody ready to get started?
I think so. And if you guys don't have chalk, you could probably use a pencil. Anything that you could remove easily from your canvas.
Yeah, and the pencil, just the only tip I say is don't mash down, because it's so easy to poke a little hole or rip the canvas. That's why we always say chalk. And when you paint over chalk, it disappears. So yeah, but a pencil will work beautifully. So the first thing we're going to do, and for anyone that has ever painted with me, I love to paint on a dark base coat as opposed to the white. That way you're layering color in kind of a backwards way, but it allows you to get all of this dimension. You guys can see where there's a dark black, maybe shadow or color popping out from the painting. That's your base coat. So you're not applying that. You're actually covering up with color and letting some of that black show through. So I love to paint on a dark base coat. And all this is our licorice. And I'm just doing a really nice even coat. I'm not adding any water because I just want a nice solid black canvas. Doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to make sure that you don't have any areas that are really thick and won't dry, because the key to this is also making sure that it's dry before we start all of our techniques. I always also tell everybody, I love these stretch canvases from Michaels. They've just got really clean, professional edges. You can add a frame, of course, but you don't have to. So after the class, a little tip I always say is we don't do it in the class just because we want to take time to do all the techniques, but go back and do to the edges what you did to the top. So for example, if the blue sky is along this edge, you would go and paint the edge of that canvas blue, and the water is here, you would paint the edge of your canvas basically to match the top. That way, it's just a really nice edge and you can hang that up without adding a frame. All right, not perfect, but good enough to be base coating on a solid black surface. Okay, once that is base coated, you guys, use your hair dryer and get that dry, which it will dry really fast with a blow dryer. So Dylan, any questions before I start blow drying my black?
No, I don't think so. Just reminders, Kirsten just base coated the canvas with black. So you can use whatever black you've got on hand. But I think, Kirsten, did you say you have licorice there?
I use licorice, yep. Dylan. Yep. Okay, then I'm going to blow dry while you guys are base coating as well. I think it's dry. You just want to make sure it's totally dry. One more area that's a little wet. There we go. I love working with acrylics because they dry so quick, and that allows you to just layer color after color. All right, so everyone should have a base coated black canvas, and you guys can see it's not perfect, but it's pretty much full coverage. Okay, so what we did is we did not supply a pattern. And the only reason we did that is because I didn't want you guys, well, and it wouldn't be achievable with this style of painting. I didn't want you guys to do almost like a paint by number feel where you're just following a pattern. So we are going to apply our pattern with the chalk. And what I always try to say is kind of look at your canvas or your painting and break it apart into basic shapes. Like the base of the boats are kind of like a brick or an oval, maybe a little irregular edge, but still a long rectangle shape. All your little sails are a long triangle, not perfect, but just a basic shape that you know that you can draw with your chalk. So just kind of use that, and that always makes it so much easier to see and break apart your design. So first thing I'm going to do is divide the sky from the ocean. And I'm just going to go maybe, I don't know, maybe a fourth up the canvas. I don't want to divide it equally in half, but I don't want the water to be too small because I want to be able to fit those boats. So maybe a fourth up the canvas, and really lightly. Remember, you just need this as a guide. So draw a straight line dividing your sky from your ocean. And then what I'm going to do is just for placement, I'm going to place my boat that is in the front. I'm going to keep scooting this in there. So this big yellow boat is in the front of my painting. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it, maybe a finger's width of water above the base of the boat. And I'm just going to draw almost like a brick with angled edges, but very loose, just for a guide. And then I'm going to draw the sails. But remember, we're not going to paint by number or color book paint this. We're just putting it there for placement because it's a really abstract design. So I drew the sail. I'll draw the flag just so I have it there for reference. And then I'm going to do this little green boat that kind of comes out from the back. And because it's behind that, it's about half the width of our first boat that we drew. And then I'm going to draw the sails as well. I always like when part of your design falls off the canvas. And then I'm going to draw that other sail that kind of goes back there behind that front boat. Let me hold that up, see if you guys can see it better. Oh, definitely. I'm going to hold that there just for a minute. But you guys just sketch it. Don't overthink it and don't have it be absolutely perfect. You're just placing all of the shapes so that we've kind of got a guide. Because remember, abstract is beautiful and trending, but it also leaves room for a lot of interpretation. Alrighty, so now our last little boat, I'm going to bring that in. That's the red guy. He's also behind. So I'm going to kind of use this first front boat, and halfway through is where I'm going to do the base of that boat because I want them all staggered. I don't want them in a row. I want them just very natural. And I'm going to let that end kind of about there. And I'm going to draw the sails.
Kirsten, we had a question. I already know the answer, but is it okay if it's not perfect? And anytime Kirsten's painting a painting, she's going to encourage you to go with the flow.
Yep. Dylan is absolutely right. No, your pattern does not have to be perfect because we're going to paint over it. And look at the style painting that we're doing, like all of the edges. I think I might like the palette knife so much because I can have all of this imperfection, but it still works because of the style. So no, do not erase, do not overthink it. You just want, I'm going to lift that up again. You just, oh, there we go. You just want placement of your three boats, your sky and your water. All righty. Okay, so now on either your plate or your palette paper, I'm going to get a little bit of Wicker White. I never add too much because you can always add more. I just don't want to waste. So I'm getting True Blue and Wicker White. And what we're going to do first is the sky. So using my largest brush, and you can use, if you're more comfortable with a smaller brush, use that, but I'm going to use the 3/4 inch flat brush. Now with this style painting, you always want to have a dry brush. You can clean it, of course, in the water, but then remove as much water as you can on a dry paper towel. Because we're going to do a dry brush technique to get our base coat, and then we're going to add the fun stuff with the palette knife. So what I'm going to do is base coat my sky, and I'm going to go into that true blue, loading both sides of the brush, but not having too much paint on there. And then we said it once, Jess said it, and it was perfect. We're almost going to slap the canvas in a really random pattern because we don't want to create a line. We don't want to create like a little brick stepping stone pattern. So if you just slap the brush back and forth, no water, load the brush when you need more paint, but you don't want to cover up that black completely, and you don't want to create a pattern. So you're going to start with the true blue, and then you're going to put that same brush, load of some of the wicker white, and just slap in a really random pattern all the areas on your canvas that are sky. And to get, there's a little learning curve in this, but you guys, it's really easy if you just kind of have fun with it. You want to get close to the pattern that you drew, but this is a perfect place where I can show you. See that black, almost like outline? That is your base coat coming through. So when you do your sky, it's okay to leave a little space around your pattern. So for example, my sail is right there. You don't want to outline it with full coverage. You still want to be really random with your brush strokes, but you can get kind of close to your pattern elements. But the reason we don't have any water and that we have not a lot of paint on our brush is, let me hold this up. You want that black to show through. See how it creates both texture and just a bunch of really, really neat details. And you're just going to keep layering the blue and the white, loading that onto the same brush. You want to get into those little nooks and crannies, like right there is where the sail is close to, what is that called, Dylan? I don't know. The stick in the middle of the boat.
Bow. I'm going to go out on
Maybe
a
the
limb.
bow.
Yeah.
I'm glad Dylan knew.
Maybe.
And then under my sail, I'm like stick in the middle of the boat. I'm going to stop where I drew the line for the water, but I'm not outlining. I'm just getting that color close enough to the pattern that we created to keep everything defined still. There's that stick of the boat again.
The mast. Okay, we're being ripped apart in the comments, Kirsten.
Oh no.
It's the mast. I should have known.
What'd you say, bow?
Yeah, I think that's the
said
front of the
stick.
ship.
Nope, I said stick. So you win still. And then you're going to just add color, not covering up the black, and going back and forth in the white and the blue, the only two colors. And then if you want a brighter sky, a little bit lighter of a blue, add more white. Whatever color you like for your sky to be, but just make sure that you don't cover up the black completely. And then you've got a really random large brush stroke to create that dry brush look. We're not adding clouds yet. Those are with the palette knife more at the end. Did I get a little bit right there? Because that's my line where my water and my sky meet. So I just need a little bit more right there. So you can still see your pattern. I love when the dry brush drags across the canvas and you can see the details in the canvas. All right, so that is the sky. And then I'm not even going to clean this brush in the water. I'm just going to clean it on a paper towel. And then I'm going to add this really beautiful, brilliant ultramarine to my palette. And we are going to do the exact same thing for the water. I'm going to go right into that brilliant ultramarine. See how they looked really similar in the bottle, but the pigment is so different when you're using it. Same technique, not outlining, but just going back and forth to cover up that black, but still letting a lot of it show through. And then I'm gonna load a little bit of that true blue that we did for the sky. Even a little bit of the wicker white. I don't want too much of the white because you guys can see in the finished painting, the sky is, or I'm sorry, the water is a much darker blue, but a little bit of white just to get some dimension. And the same thing, remember where your pattern is, where your sky meets the ocean, and then these areas like under your sails, you want to get some water color in there, but you're still not outlining, you're just filling. And then there's a little bit of water above this boat. So mostly the ultramarine, a little bit of white, and a little bit, oops, a little bit of the true blue. And a lot of the black is showing through. I'm gonna hold that up so you guys can see it. There's your sky. Oh, a lot of black, but just a really nice base coat. And then there is your water. So you can still see your pattern, but the edges are really soft. Okay, so now we're going to do the base and the sails. So I'm going to load the rest of the colors onto my palette. The lime green, the lipstick red, daffodil yellow. And if you're out of wicker white, add a little bit more wicker white to your palette, because we use white with all the different colors. Okay, so now I skip down to my number 10, but again, you could use your number 12. If you're doing a larger canvas, you can clean that large brush that we base coated with, and you can still use that. Use whatever brush is comfortable. So I'm going to start on the bottoms of the boat, and I'm going to start with the green one. I always like to start in the back and move forward just because it's kind of a natural way to layer your painting. Loading that lime green, not too much paint, because we're going to do that same dry brush technique. And I'm just going to base coat the bottom of my boat. Is that what it's called, Dylan? The bottom of my boat?
I'm not even going to go for it.
We've got some professional boat people out there.
They've inhibited me.
Dylan really knows everything about everything, or something about everything. So I'm shocked he doesn't know. I'm shocked he didn't say, well, when I was 17, I was on a sailing club. Right, Dylan?
Yeah, I guess.
So you guys, this is what I want you guys to see. See how the black just a little bit is outlining and separating the bottom of the boat from the water and the sky. That is, if you don't have that, if you overlap your green into your sky, that's fine too. But if you have that black outline, that just adds almost like a shadow to your boat. A little touch of white, never going into the water, and just dry brush base coating.
Oh, here we go. It's the hull, Kirsten. It's the hull.
It's the hull. That's
Yep.
like skull, a word I'll never be able to say.
Mhm.
Our boat people are telling you, or you're remembering?
Oh no, we've got people that know a lot about boats in the comments, and I'm very thankful for them tonight.
It's our boat people.
Yeah.
They live somewhere fabulous. All right, I'm cleaning that brush in the water, but removing all of the water on a paper towel. And I'm going to sneak over to my far left side and do the same thing with the red. Random strokes, no water, and just applying a base coat to the hull of the boat. Good job, right?
Oh yeah.
A little touch of white. And like right there is where I already forgot, the stick in the center of the boat. So I'm leaving that black. Just the black allows you to have some dimension. So when I put the brown over that, so I'm leaving that area base coated black. But now the red is base coated. If you wanted a richer red, just do almost like a second coat, but of that same technique, but still letting some of that black come through and the texture. And then I'm cleaning that same brush, still the number 10, drying it off. And now I'm going to do my front center boat with the Daffodil Yellow. The yellow is a great color to show you guys, if I can be steady, how the black and the texture comes through. Not a solid base coat. And always picking up a little bit of white. If you go over the water a little bit, that's okay. Don't rub it off, don't correct it. It'll just blend beautifully and flow together. So this little sail up here is yellow. If you want to do them all white, definitely do that. But if you want to match the painting, the example, bring that back in. It's just got a little pop of yellow up on that sail. So I'm going to do the same dry brush. Really random strokes, a touch of white to fill in and base coat the sail. Whenever you're doing the dry brush technique, someone said a great tip once, it's easy to keep adding layers of paint, but it's almost impossible to take off paint and get that black base coat to come through. So a little bit of paint on your brush is better than too much. I always thought that was just great advice. It's easy to add paint, but it's really hard to remove paint and get that black base coat back. So I've got a yellow sail. All the bases of my boats are base coated. And now I'm going to do the rest of these little sails with white. Cleaning that number 10 brush, drying it off. And then the same technique with just Wicker White. You can keep going back over it and getting a little bit brighter of a color. But you still want that black to come through. It's like we don't have to go in and add any shadows. The base coat kind of automatically puts them into your painting. Get more paint if you need it. I might need a little bit more Wicker White. But remember, we're going to add with the palette knife, we're going to add even more color to each section. So remember that when you're adding, or when you're dry brushing, getting a little bit more Wicker White. Still using that number 10. Some areas I'm overlapping the blue, the base coat for the sky. In some areas I'm leaving more of the black. It's really just whatever you prefer as you're adding your color. I've done this technique before. Maybe some of you have joined us for floral. We did a cute little landscape. We've done little houses in a meadow. Same technique. And a lot of people love it just like this, just the dry brush and the canvas texture coming through. And they don't even add the techniques of the palette knife. That's fine if that's what you would like to do for your painting. So now I'm going to do this little flag, and I'm going to do mine red, same brush. I didn't even clean that in the water, but I'm just going to apply a base coat to him. And this is a neat spot to show you guys. So nothing's wrong, nothing needs to be fixed, but I've noticed that right there, my center yellow boat, I kind of kept a curve in my sail. So I'm going to go back in and add just a little bit more of the watercolor. Cleaning that brush. I'm going to use the big 3/4 inch. And that's the bright ultramarine, because I like that curve in that sail. So I'm just going to go in there and just dry brush a little bit more of the ocean color, just in areas like right there on the edge of that green boat. I want a little bit more of the ocean color. I'm going to leave a spot for the stick. But just a little bit in areas, maybe a straight line above the top of that red boat, just to separate the ocean from the sky. Picking up a little bit of Wicker White, but not too much. And then that black line, that'll be where I add the brown. I'm going to clean that brush on my paper towel and pick up a little bit of that true blue. and the Wicker White. And I'm just going to go in there and do the same thing, add a little bit of the sky color where I might want a little bit more. I don't think my brown is going to cover up all that black. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the sky. Just really adding base coat. Now that you've got all of your elements there. That one's perfect. I don't see any areas where I need more sky, but just kind of cleaning it up just a little. So now you guys should have a base coat. Oh, let's see if I can be steady enough. That if you wanted to, that is kind of a fun, simple, abstract painting. I'm going to go down to, let's see, what is this? I think it's a number 6 flat brush. I'm going to add some of that coffee bean, that dark chocolate, just a little to my palette. And I am just going to paint a straight line, but still making sure it has an irregular edge. I don't want it to be perfectly straight. I want it to be really natural like the rest of my painting. So I'm almost sketching it in place instead of dragging a really perfect straight line. Some areas I'm going over white, some areas I'm going over blue. But the FolkArt layers and blends beautifully. And also you've noticed, I'm sure everybody's base coat is almost totally dry. That's why we're able to just keep adding color because it dries so quickly. Just getting a little bit more Wicker White. I always like to have just a touch of that in any color that I add. So I've got a touch of it in the brown. And I'm just really rough adding that to the brown. Okay, so you've got your base coat, all of your color is placed, your pattern is created, and you've got a really cute abstract painting. So now we're gonna do the palette knife. So I'm just using a traditional plastic palette knife, and I'm gonna show you guys on my palette paper kind of the technique. I'm going to pull that palette paper over so you guys can actually see it. Okay, so for those of you that haven't used a palette or a palette knife, all you do is, I'm going to practice with this bright blue. You pounce into the paint. You're not loading the entire palette knife. You're just kind of loading the bottom section. So I'm just pouncing into that paint. You want a good bit of paint on there, but not so much that it's dripping. And then the key to the palette knife is very light-handed. You don't want to mash down on your canvas and drag because you'll get kind of you'll almost remove paint and you'll get more of a solid stripe. You want to load paint and you almost want to just skim across your canvas. Remember, same thing. You can always add paint, but you can't, it's harder to remove it. So you load paint and then you just skim across your canvas, kind of letting color fall where it may. Never any water. And then the other key is you want to stay flat. You don't want to be up on your tip like a brush. You don't want to be on the flat edge. Let me do it right there. You don't want to be on the flat edge. You don't want to be up on your tip. You want to be light-handed and you want to be flat with your canvas. So that's how we're going to apply color using our palette knife. I'm going to get some more Wicker White on my palette or on my palette paper and make sure I've got all the colors: green, red, yellow. I need some more of the ultramarine. You don't need too much. A little bit of the true blue. And I've still got a little bit of the brown. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the base of our boats, the colored section. I'm going to not even clean that palette knife in the water. I'm just going to make sure the blue that I just practiced with is pretty much removed off of that palette knife. So I'm going to start with the red guy, and I'm just going to pounce red onto just the bottom of my palette knife. And this is where I always tell people, so if it is natural for you to pull towards you, if it's natural for you to go left to right, move your canvas. Don't move your arm into a crazy position so you're working in a weird direction. I always feel the best pulling either towards me or left to right. So if I'm pulling towards me, I've got red loaded on my palette brush or on my palette knife. I'm going to line up the palette knife with the top of the boat, and I'm just going to lightly pull towards me. It's going to be hard for you guys to see, but I hope you can see where it just adds a brighter red, a thicker application, and a lot of abstract elements. So I'm going to pick up more of that red, and I'm going to just pull down starting at the top of the boat. But I'm not completely covering what I dry brushed. I'm just adding another element of color. I'm going to go right into the white. Same palette knife. There was still red on there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull down in some areas. I'm going to go left to right. And then I'm going to pull down. I'm going to pull left to right. And then I'm going to slide it down. I'm not allowing all those colors to blend and make pink. I'm keeping the red and the white separate, but just adding some dimension. Because I've got red on there, I'm going to pick up the red again, and I'm going to do the same thing, but just a smaller little drag on the flag. I'm going to get some white and pull that down. I hope you guys can see it. Sometimes it's tricky to see on the camera. Okay, then I'm going to clean the palette knife, not even going in the water. How's everyone doing, Dylan?
I think everybody's good.
Good. I'm going to load that lime green, pouncing in the paint. And then I'm just going to start at the top of the boat and just pull towards me. Tapping that same palette knife in the white. I'm going to go left to right, horizontal, just to add some texture. Pounce in the white, and then I'm just going to pull down. And the fun thing about the palette knife is add as much texture or color as you like. If you just want a little bit, maybe just do one swipe. If you like a lot of texture, I think you guys will be able to see it better with the green. Add more. And every time you switch colors, just clean it on a paper towel. Pounce into the paint that you're going to use next. And the same thing, you're just lightly dragging more color over your dry brush. And same thing, picking up white, because that's just a great way to add some dimension. And here's the spot where I'm going to turn my canvas, because it's natural for me to pull towards me. I'm going to turn it totally upside down, because it's not easy for me to push up. I like to pull towards me. So I want to create almost a bottom, a stronger line. So I'm going to pull that yellow palette knife towards me. Rather than learn how to use the palette knife by pushing up, you just move your canvas. It's so much easier. I'm going to accent that little yellow sail, going left to right and starting on the left edge. Picking up a little white, look, and a little red. But look, that's not a mistake. I'm not at all going to wipe that off. I love a little bit because it's just it just looks like layered oils almost. a little bit of color where you didn't originally plan is a good mistake. Adding a little bit of white. So the bases of my boats are done. My yellow sail. And now I'm going to add even more wicker white onto my palette paper. And just picking up the wicker white, I'm going to do all of my white sails. And I'm going to turn that canvas, because for me, it's easiest to pull the palette knife towards me. I'm going to start on the edge of my sails and just skim across that canvas, laying a little bit more white down. Let's see if you guys can see the difference. That's just dry brushed, and that's where I'm starting to add more paint with the palette knife. So just a really fun way. Well, I've got my canvas in this direction. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna turn it absolutely upside down. I know it seems weird, but that way I can, with confidence, do this palette knife technique, pulling towards me. I'm letting the palette knife, sometimes it jumps outside of the pattern that we dry brushed. I actually love when that happens, because it just creates another layer. Okay, so I've got palette knife application really on all of my details, just to kind of make the sky match the look of the boats. I'm going to go into that true blue. And starting, I'm using the edge of my canvas as my starting point. I'm just going to drag some of the sky color. I'm going to actually go back and forth into the blue and to the white, loading both on my palette knife. And I'm just going to do that same technique starting at the top of my canvas, not a lot of pressure, and just dragging more color onto my sky. Add paint to your palette as you need it. I'm going through a lot of wicker white, so just keep adding that. And I'm going to turn my canvas, kind of get to the edge of my boat sail so I can pull towards me, and just adding, looks a lot like an oil painting when we use this palette knife to add all this texture. And this is just the true blue and the white. You guys can see right there, that's a perfect spot. By skimming and not dragging, you get all of that different details and different layers of the same two colors, just blue and white. But it almost looks like we've used 3 or 4 different blues. Pulling toward me, I'm going to start where the water meets the sky and definitely define that edge with my palette knife. And once you've got kind of the look that you want, you can stop. I'm going to do a little bit in this section between the sail and the, whatever you call it, I already forgot. Gosh, I wish I was a boat person. I'm totally forgetting. I love a boat. I just don't know the parts of a sailboat. Okay, so you've done it in your sky. Now the bright, is it bright or brilliant? Brilliant ultramarine, same palette knife. And you just want all of your canvas to kind of look similar. So that's why we're just doing the plain ultramarine over our dry brush, so that the texture of the sky matches the water. You did palette knife up there. You just want to do some more palette knife down in the water. Okay, so I've added some texture using the palette knife. Now we're going to do kind of the fun stuff. We're going to add some details to our sticks. We're going to add all of that really pretty reflection that the sun creates in the water. So using that palette knife, still not cleaning it in the water, just on a paper towel. First thing I am going to do is just scoop the very end of that palette knife into the brown. And I'm actually going to pull down this time using more of the tip, not up on the tip like a brush, but this is the only time we're just going to kind of pull down. And the only reason we're doing that again is so that all of the elements in our painting match. That one would just be the only area that's just dry brushed. So you want to add that texture with the palette knife. Still lightly applying pressure and dragging over that base coat. And just get the littlest bit of Wicker White and just softly drag that over the brown, almost letting it hop. So it's not a straight line, but it's just a bunch of texture. Okay, now we're going to add the reflections in the water. And to do that, I want to make sure a little bit more Wicker White. So all I'm going to do is get the tiniest bit of true blue, pouncing onto my palette knife, and then mostly Wicker White, because I want it to be a good bit lighter than my ocean color. And then if you guys want to pull towards you, but I'm going to go left to right. If you're left-handed or right-handed, go left, right, right, left. And I'm going to use a little bit of the edge. So instead of being flat like we've done, and you don't want to be all the way up on this, on the thin edge, you're almost going to split the difference. So you're at maybe a slight angle. It's loaded with a little bit of blue and some white, and you're just going to almost draw a line underneath the boat. You're not using the really thin edge, and you're not using the flat bottom. You're staying at a slight angle, and you're just going back and forth for now, just with white and a little bit of true blue. And you're getting a little bit smaller or a little bit shorter of a line. It's the reflection. So the boat is the widest here, and then it gets thinner as it comes away from the boat. So longer line at the base, and then it just ends in a shorter, thinner line. Still just white and a little bit of blue. If you want to turn your canvas, because I can only pull left to right, you can see that where you start and stop, it's always thicker where you start the pool. So that way, if you turn your canvas, you can get a line that is not always thick on one edge. You can see I'm staying at just a slight angle and just hopping across that canvas. They're not perfect lines. That's why we're using the palette knife and not the brush, because you don't want them to look like stripes. You want them to be very irregular. And then same palette knife, not even going to wipe it off. I'm going to load a little bit more blue. And for the red boat, I'm going to pick up a little bit of red. And I'm going to do that same, staying at a slight angle, putting a little bit of red into the reflection under the red boat, a little bit of yellow, just a little, in the reflection of the yellow boat, going on the paper towel. I got green and a little bit of the ocean blue, or the true blue, and then a little bit of green reflection where the green boat is. Oh, let's see if you guys can see that. I always go the opposite way, but the reflection is the same as the boat. So a little bit of green with the blue and the white, the yellow is reflecting in the center, and the red is reflecting on the side. So just a really fun way with that palette knife to add some details to your painting. And then the last thing I'm going to do, getting that palette knife clean enough, is I am going to get more Wicker White. I think that's my favorite color for the day. Never has white been my favorite. I'm going to load just Wicker White onto that palette knife. Same way, just pouncing in the Wicker White. And then the original palette technique where we just really light-handed, not mashing down, I'm going to skim across that canvas, going over the same area a few times, left to right, almost polishing a section, but keeping your edges really random to create a puffy cloud. You're applying a little bit more pressure here because you want a little bit better coverage, but you don't want solid coverage. You want those really irregular edges, but you're going back and forth, almost polishing that section. Still using the flat edge of the palette knife, but you can move that paint around a little bit more than what you did with the other palette knife techniques. To paint a cloud would be a whole lot more challenging. It wouldn't match the look of this painting. So that's why we're applying it with the palette knife and almost scrubbing or polishing. You don't want to create a pattern. You don't want a row of clouds. You want to have one a little higher, one a little lower. I love when an element falls off the canvas. Our little sail fell off on this side. So maybe this little cloud will fall all the way off the edge and then just bump up on that yellow sail. And I'm going to do one more, maybe falling off the top. So I'm just going back and forth, almost scrubbing that paint. Oh, there we go. But just creating, if you want a lot of clouds, if you didn't want any at all, you can keep a perfectly blue sky. I think that's all I'm going to add. Making sure that my edges are really irregular. Got some white on my palette. I'm just going to add some to that little boat. I think that might be it. Dylan, how's everybody doing?
I think everybody's still painting along.
Oh, I love it. So you guys, that is our little summer sailboats using a dry brush, a dark background, and a palette knife. And you just get so much layer, so much dimension. And it's just a really fun way to enjoy painting with the FolkArt acrylics. So Dylan, if nobody has any specific questions?
No.
No? Well, that's awesome. You guys, thanks for joining us. We love when you guys join us on our Michael's Mondays. And we love, this is our favorite part, we start looking at them even tonight. We love when you guys share your paintings. So hashtag Plaid Crafts and I forget the
Make it with
Michael's.
Michael's. Make it with Michael's.
Make it with Michael's and Plaid Crafts and post your paintings. We love to see what you guys have created. And I hope that you guys join us next Monday, same time, while we teach you another fun painting. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.